All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Let's get this rolling here. Do some Q&A and testing. Yeah. So welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you guys can see me on there pretty well. Looks like we are 5x5. Yeah, get rolling. So nothing like doing your stream right at the exact time as Virgin Atlantic is doing their live stream for the first, I guess, commercial. I didn't even know about this. I've not been paying attention. I just saw it on YouTube here. So if you aren't aware, apparently they're getting their first commercial flights in low Earth orbit, or I guess, or something. I don't know. I was just watching a little bit. So hopefully it's not too distracting. Apologize for the timing on that. But it's been a busy week and a busy weekend, and I wanted to try to do some, like I said, some Q&A this morning and do a little testing, module testing for the Express ELRS, the Happy model. So we got the Happy model here in the back, and just fell my chair. With the Happy model, 2.4G module on the back. Got it hooked up to my receiver here as well, and we'll do some testing, like I said. Let me see here, pop back over. If it's your first time jumping on board, if you're a patron and you have any questions or whatnot, let me show you what's going on here. You can throw them into the office hours chat right here, and we'll take a look at those either today on the live stream, or if I get a bunch, I typically follow up with people after the stream. So this is under the patrons only, office hours here, gets a little bit additional attention. Of course, as always, if you are just joining the stream and aren't on Patreon, go ahead and throw your question here in the chat, and we will make sure to get that. If I don't see it or not hitting your question, of course, it does help to just tag me on that. Just do the @ symbol, at UAV Tech, and then that will kind of draw it to my attention and make sure we get it going. So one question here so far is, does 0802 motors get hot if they're too much D term or something, and or too little filtering? Well, all motors can get hot if there's too much D term. It depends what you classify as too much. So that would be the best way to see if it's the D term that's causing your issue. It's not going to be any of the other PID gains. It's just lower your D term. You should be able to do probably just cut them in half or take them down. I don't know if it's 0802, it's probably pretty small. But anything in like the 20s, if your D term's in the 20s, it should not be causing hot motors. You can crank up the filtering or set it back to default. Basically bring the sliders back down so that they're at 1.0 or even lower, and just do a flight with that. If they're still hot, then obviously this has nothing to do with the tune or the D term. It has to do, if it's a whoop or a Cinewhoop style that's carrying a fairly heavy load, those just get hot. Depends how hot it is outside too. So there could be a number of other things. You could get some grounding effects where if you have a motor screw touching the windings, that could make them hot. Sometimes ESCs go bad over time, and a symptom of the ESC going bad is that your motors are just hot. So you probably want to, changing an ESC is not so easy. You probably want to see, is it all the motors or just one? An ESC failure would most likely just be kind of one off the bat, but it could be all of them, I guess. So I would rule the easiest things to do is change some software settings, right? Move your filters all the way down, move the D gains all the way down. If they're still hot, check your motor windings. See if it's all or all four motors. Make sure there's no screws touching the windings. If it is all of them, then the next spot I would go is probably the ESC settings. Make sure your ESC settings are on default, BLHeli default. So that's 24K. That's you know, 16 degrees for motor timing, things like that. Just set all your ESC settings to default on BLHeli 32 or BLHeli S. If they're still hot, then if it's a whoop style, like a cine whoop, that could just be how they run. Could get lower pitch props and see if that helps. After that, I would probably then start, maybe consider switching out the ESC. So that would be my best advice on that. So yeah, what's up? Let's do some science, I guess, today, right? Trying to tune a tiny whoop, total newbie, D's in the 80s, yeah. And I've dropped the filters off. Some whoops, still, some whoops, some wobbles still. Motors are totally cold. Could I go higher or less on the filtering? Yeah, yeah, if the motors are cool, you can always raise your gains up. So it's hard to tell if it's going to help or not. On a whoop, what I would recommend is don't get super aggressive with your filters because of the ducts and everything. And the frames are like TPU or some sort of soft plastic. They're not usually TPU. They're some sort of soft plastic. So I would not, that causes a lot of vibrations and different things. So I would keep your filters more conservative. It's not a 5-inch. 5-inch is where you really want to push. You can, it's hard, stiff carbon and all that kind of stuff. Then you can start to push your gains up. Now, when you push your gains up, if you're coming off with my UAV Tech, just go to that real quick. Let's see if I can get this. Yeah, here it is. UAVtech.com. So if you're tuning anything and you're using these presets, so the intent of the presets to me is the starting point, right? Presets equals in the ballpark. That's what we're trying to get you. So if you have a whoop and you're applying this preset to your whoop, what you can do is you can see here we have the slider set up. So you said you were in the 80s. What I would do to see if you can get better performance out of it is just move up this P&D gain slider, just because the I terms are pretty high in Betaflight default already. So you could either move up the master or the P&D gain slider, either one of these. And these will give you, if you don't have bounce back and you don't, or I'm sorry, P&D gain, it's this one. So it'd be the master here or this one, not the PD bounce. If it's flying well, like it doesn't have bounce back and any of that stuff, then I would, push this P&D gain slider up, or the master if you want to move iThermal up with it. That will give you increased prop watch performance. And then if it's better, move it up a little bit more. If it's better, move it up a little bit more. Keep an eye on those motor temps. But I would not get super conservative on the filters here. My recommendation for a preset for a whoop, at least, is just leave it 1-to-1. It's more important to get higher PID gains than it is to to lower the filtering or lower the filter delay for a whoop. So you can move this up a little bit if you want, but I wouldn't get crazy with this, or try to turn off gyro low passes like you see for 5-inch recommendations. I would kind of pay less attention to this, and I would pay more attention to just getting the gains up. And at some point, if the motors start to get hot or it's not, you will get to a spot where you'll just move the gains up, and it's like, well, I don't really know. I don't see any difference. I don't notice any difference. You will get to a spot where you just hit the mechanical limitations of the motors themselves. They can only update so fast, so it doesn't matter how quickly you drive them to make an update. That's what higher gains do. So lower gains, when the motor goes to update with lower gains, that ramp from like say the motor's at a specific motor's at 40% throttle and it needs to react in a prop wash condition and it needs to go to 60% throttle. Well, lower gains, it's going to make that ramp slower. With higher gains, PID gains, like moving up the P&D gain slider or the master, that will make that ramp from 40 to 60 faster. So it will think of it like on a slope going from 40 to 60 for like to update for prop wash in an infinitesimal little bit of time. Instead of that slope being this, with higher gains, it would just move that slope to this. It pushes faster. It's like a faster reaction. Think of it if somebody pushes you. So somebody comes up and gives you a little shove. Well, you know, if you get a shove, you can kind of, you know, get shoved back and, you know, shoved and then push back kind of a thing, or get back to where you were. Or the other way is you get shoved and then push back. You push really hard to get back to where you were. Um, Again, higher gains, it just makes it push back faster or harder to get to where it needs to go, where the controller's commanding it to go, or to push back against an external influence. So that's my best advice on that one. What else we got? Got those. What was that? Science, yeah. Anti-blog. Have I seen Pal's latest video about dead hobby? What do you think? I did see it. What was he on? Help me out, guys. What was that website he was on? I looked myself up on there. Shoot. I can't think of it now. I can't remember it now. Many other tech channels lost their audience because of the great RTF quads. Now, Social Blade, thank you very much. Social Blades. So let's go look at Social Blade. So I didn't make his list, and I don't know. I think he needs to look at. I think he needs to look at a broader sampling, because you know there was a couple things in there where he was looking at folks dropping off. Well, I'm not seeing that. Like from 2018 to 2021. But so was he selecting? You know, it's tough. Was he selecting? He kind of dismissed like Bardwell's or staying steady, dismissed Steels because it's kind of going up. Dismissed. There was a couple flat lines and a couple ones that were increasing, like Bach Grinder. I think he dismissed that one. So he like dismissed some of the ones that were trending flat or going up, and then focused on any of the ones that had a slight downgrade, like a slight downslope. So I don't know. I don't think it really matters personally. I mean, I don't. So yeah, but I don't know. It still seems like things are going in the right direction. Yeah. So that was my thoughts. I did look. What I did do is look up right away. I was like, I didn't make the list. Oh, see what trends I got going on. I don't know. So yeah, if it plateaus or goes up or goes down, I mean, I don't know. Does it really matter? Do you like or dislike the hobby more or less because other people are doing it? Unless you're in business and you're thinking about opening an FPV shop, then I think you should do a lot of research on it, right? But if you're just enjoying the hobby, I don't think it matters, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking on that. Any other questions here? Whoops. Kern's JWS. Whoops. Yeah, whoops are hard to tune. So the best thing I would think Kern's JW for whoops is Brian White has a PID toolbox. He calls it basement tuning. So YouTube toolbox. Oh gosh, I'm on there. Brian White has his own channel for PID toolbox. Let's see if I can pull him out of a subscriber thing here. Come on. And he has this approach he calls basement tuning. And it's basically where you can use PID toolbox and go back and forth in angle mode. Let's see if I have him up here. And with that, see if I can get a link to his channel, or if anybody else has that link to Brian's channel where he goes over basement tuning. I think that's probably the best way to tune a whoop, because it just involves going back and forth, because whoops are hard to do full rate moves. Here it is. So let me paste this down. Check out his basement tuning approach. I think that with PID toolbox, I think that's probably the best way to tune a whoop, is just using that approach and using PID toolbox, because you can make the hard movements back and forth, roll and pitch, all that kind of good stuff, and then put that in the PID toolbox if you have black box. See, that's the trick though, right? A lot of whoops don't have black box. So you can get an open lagger, not logger, lagger, Lagger. They're about $20. You could throw it on there. It adds some weight though, so it throws it off a little bit. You could do it that way, or just go with the preset. At the end of the day, my best, I guess, advice without a logger, without logging a whoop, is out of all the whoops I've ever tuned, they always have a 1-to-1 PD ratio, right? This balance between the P term and the D term. So this would be, I know this is 63 and this is 67, but they're about the same. Like whatever the P is, the D is should be the same number, and then you can move those up and down. Almost, I don't think I've ever seen any whoop that doesn't have that. If it's more powerful, like you have a really powerful whoop, like just a high-end one, maybe something from Newbie Drone. They make some really good whoops. Some powerful motors, really lightweight, because they're throwing them on 1S and stuff with some, so they're operating on 1S, but like all whoops should be, but they're brushless on 1S and have a lot of power to them. So there might be the P term might be a little bit higher than D term, maybe 10 points, something like that. You want to always try to push that P term to be a little bit more in the D term if you can, if the whoop has the power and doesn't get bounce backs and stuff like that. And then from there, so just keeping that kind of in mind for your PD balance, right? This ratio between the P term and the D term. So either it's going to be like a 1-to-1 if it's like a happy model whoop or something like that, or if it's brushed, it's probably going to be 1-to-1, unless you have some crazy, powerful brush motors. Probably be 1-to-1. And if that's the case, then just push up this P and D gain slider. It's just that simple. Just keep pushing this up, and flight performance will just keep getting better. 80s. Typically, the D gains are your kind of your limiters, right? So that would probably be like 60s up into the 90s, maybe 100. You get up there. So with that high of gains, that's why we keep the filters kind of more conservative, 1.0 in the filters, like I talked about earlier. So I think just with those principles, you can get a pretty good tune. It's no logging. Just go 1-to-1 if you don't know on the PD balance. Just keep moving the P and D gain slider up. You're good to go. And this stick response, that's just a feel thing. Move it up. If you like how it feels, great. If you don't, move it back down, whatever. That has nothing to do with like performance other than how it feels for you. So it can be pretty easy, and then apply those other recommendations in the preset. So back over there. There probably was a question in there that I just kind of skipped over. UAV Tech, I use your presets data a lot. This site is awesome. They work well. Great, good. So you're already on there. Then it depends on the brushed or not too. Yeah. Brushless, brushed. I used to have some brushed whoops. I know that's a thing, so this might be a little sacrilegious to say, but I just, the whole motor wear out thing you have to deal with. I can't. That was too much for me. It's like I gotta get brushless. I can't, because it sneaks up on you when the motors wear out on a brush whoop. It's like, why doesn't this have as much power? Is my batteries bad? Is what's going on? And it's just one motor that's getting wore out. It's a brushed motor. It's getting wore out, and then it pulls the other three motors down. So then if you don't have a logging, it's like, okay, now which brush motor is it? So then you're changing each motor and flying it, changing the next one, flying it. Oh, and is it two? Is it three? So you don't really know. So you really just change all four motors. And if I recall, it was 25, $30. I was running through motors fairly quickly. So I switched over to brushless. I couldn't deal. I don't like it. So brushless is don't have to deal with it. Totemoli FPV, thanks for the super chat. Thanks a lot. I'll check that out. Perfect. Dennis asks, any tips for 7-inch tuning? Tuning a 7-inch chase rig, 3000 milliamp size. I'm getting close with P&D balance 1-to-1. Yeah, my best advice on that, going back to, and we'll get into this, do some of this testing. Let's see if I can get these questions knocked out fairly quick here. So your 7-inch, what we got for 9-inch? It's about the same. So here, yeah, you can see on this one I'm moving. It's actually inverted, so your D gain's actually a little higher. So 7-inch chase rig, 3,000 pounds. What I would say my first question is, what motor size do you have? Let me bounce over here. I don't think you put on there. Yeah, you don't have anything on motor size. Depending on your motor size, obviously, one of the big things for a 7-inch chase rig, this is not, well, I guess it is. You have a larger battery, so it's close to this. I would say, if you're probably in this range, right, this 1-to-1, again, I would just apply this preset. My best advice is just apply this preset. It's probably close to a 1-to-1. It's a chase rig, so I wouldn't get crazy on the filtering because I'm sure you want some smooth action on there. Make sure to adjust these BL Heli settings. Do the PID sum limit up to 1,000. I do like Chris Rosser and I. He's a good guy. We see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but some of the stuff everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's it's like, guys, I've been saying this stuff for like 2 years. I'm not getting through to people apparently. But set your PID sum limit to 1,000, because you can hit that on a heavier rigs with a larger battery like that. And the other big thing I would recommend is check out actual rates, and this just have to do with flight feel, but check out actual rates and crank up this expo to like 0.8 or 1. A lot of times, at least when I'm flying, and I don't know what other people think about this, but when you're cruising, I don't know how to say it, but you get these, you can easily see with lower expo, like the default expo, like when you actually start to move the stick, like the quad will immediately, and then you'll get like that, like it kind of just moves. And when I'm doing like a more cinematic kind of flight, I want it to be real smooth in and real smooth out. I don't want it to like go like this and then go like that. I want it to just be smooth the whole time. And I found that Expo up at 0.8 or 1 gives you that. So check that out. That, if you're doing cinematic stuff, it might take a little bit of getting used to, but just crank this up. That would be it. And again, back to here, if you're getting 1-to-1 on that, just move this P&D gain slider up, just because these I terms are pretty high as a default already. And it should keep getting better and better. The ESC settings are key on the bigger guys, and recognizing that you need to have, decent sized motors. The bigger the motor you can get on a heavy rig, the better. So 28 something or 32 something, 30 something. You want or 24s or 23s. That's no good. I mean, it will be fine. So if you're saying like, well, that's what I have and it's fine. Okay, well, that's just not my best advice. So here, this, I would even say like if it's a 7-inch and you're doing 25s, it's okay, but I would lean towards the 28s if you don't already have them or looking to get a little bit more performance. That'll help with prop wash and a bunch of stuff. All right. We're not going to get to the testing here if I keep not getting to the testing. Oh shoot, I hope I had the screen changed. You probably might not have seen anything. So let me go back up here and get back down. If I skip over your question and in the chat here and you want me to answer it and I kind of skipped over it, I'm just tag my name. Yeah, so Dennis has 2806s, good start, 28 kV. Thank you, great tips, perfect, good. Thanks, Dennis. I hope that helped. Hope that gave you a little bit of just broad brush stuff to check out. Just keep moving P&D. P&D gain, that P&D gain slider or the master, moving those up in any quad class. That's where the performance comes from. You need to get the P&D balance close. I don't know. That has to do with prop wash. You want to have as much P gain as possible in relation to D gain, right? So you want that in Betaflight 4.2. That means that slider would go down as much as you can. Like if you need to cheat it one way or another, like I'm going to slide it down a little bit. From there, just moving the P&D gains. And if you don't want to deal with balance at all, just set what I have on the preset. Don't go back to P&D balance. I'm sure it's fine. I'm confident that my presets for P&D balance are good for each class. Like you are 90% of the way there. It maybe one, it could be tweaked a little bit one way or on that rig or another. But if you're not honestly, I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference without black box anyway. So if you're not in the black box, don't even worry about it. Set it to where I have it on the preset and be done. Then just move that P&D gain slider up or the master, one or the other, or both, whatever. Just try to keep moving it up till you get hot motors or whatever. That's where you're going to get your performance. Why is the PID sum limit so low? I believe that has been like that for ever. Probably back in Clean Flight, it was set like that. So 6-7 years ago, I think it was set like that to limit I-term windup so that so if the I-term starts to wind up, it can only wind up to 50% of the PID sum, and then it would just stop at that point. It does not come into, it's one of these things that it is rare, honestly, especially on a 5-inch, for your PID sum to get, so the default is 500 and we change it to 1,000. It is rare on a 5-inch to get the PID sum up above 50%. It just doesn't happen because just the dynamics with like throttle is a part of that. And then also, 50%, that's 50% of the motors. 50% is kind of 100% because if you're commanding 50% one way, that means it's dropping the other motors the other way. And you just don't get there as much as you would think. So it's not critical to set your PID sum limit to 1,000 on all rigs. I question even having the presets because it's like one more thing, but it can happen on a 5-inch that you get into PID sum limits. Moreover, on the crafts that are less power to weight, like whoops, cine lifters, all those things, you can hit those PID sum limits when it's trying to react to prop wash and stuff. So check out changing it and setting it and see if it helps. I don't know if you'll notice that much. If you'd log, you would see it. If you ever are looking at your motor commands and they just come up and stop, and like why are they flatlining in a certain area? That's because you're hitting the PID sum limit. So it's more of a safety thing for me. If you're in the tuning, then yeah, I would, if it's not that much for you, I would update it. I gotta admit, even on some of my crafts, I don't take the time to change the PID sum limit up. I just let it go because again, most of the time it won't be hit. But I don't fly a lot of like 9-inch, 7-inch cine lifters. I stay mostly with 5-inch. I really like the 3-inch, 2-inch, and this last winter I didn't fly any whoops. I don't know, wasn't into it. So yeah, that's why I don't set it as much. Anti-blow gas, should we use PID sum with 1,000 for first slider tune? On a 5-inch, I don't think it really matters either way. I mean, it's just a CLI paste. It's in the presets there. You can just copy and paste it too. Yeah. If I include it in the presets because if you do set it to 1,000, it's one less thing you have to worry about. You know you're not dealing with some PID sum limit thing. I think that might get changed to be 1,000 because Chris Thompson, he mostly controls the defaults in Betaflight, and he's like, yeah, I changed it on all. He agrees. He changed it on all his as well. So it just takes somebody to submit a PR, which is really nothing to do to change it to 1,000 and just be 1,000 from then on. There might be some hesitancy by other devs, just because like, you know, oh, what issues could this cause? And the biggest thing is that it would let the I term wind up twice as long if you had some sort of I term wind up problem. But man, I don't know what scenario that would be. It would be something like you're in the ground or something at that point. Crunked asks, I just buttoned up my AOS 5. When are you going to build one? I don't know. When I don't have a Frank. Well, I gotta close the door. The kids are here. Crunked, is the logging amazing? I would think it is, right? Hopefully it's a nice clean build. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how, how everybody gets with Chris Rosser's. He's getting great results. Is everybody else getting great results? Because there's more than just the frame, right? There's other components. I know you build good rigs, so it'd be interesting to see because if everybody else is getting great results, and the sturdiness of the frame and all that kind of stuff, might be a good frame to standardize on, right? Yeah, be interested in seeing that crunked. Let me know. Throw in Discord, or if you throw it in your Discord, I'd love to pop over there and check it out. White teeth. I don't know about it's the lighting, guys. That the white teeth is the lighting. It's all cameras. It's all magic. I don't look. If you think it's not. That's fine. If I turn the light to white, then you'd see the darkerness. But if you have a slight yellow in the light, for some reason that makes it better. I don't know. All right. Black box question. So Dog Life FPV says, black box question. If the gyro is lagging the set point, but I am still getting overshoots, do I need more D or feed forward? The gyro, but I'm still getting overshoots. So the question is, what kind of overshoots? I guess Dog Life FPV, what quad class? Because then I can give better advice. Like there's a bunch of things that roll through my mind with questions like that. So let's look over here real quick. And go back to here. So one of the first things that if you're getting overshoots, what do you mean by overshoot? Do you mean bounce back where it bounces and you can like see it? If you can see it, that's probably I term. And if that's I term, make sure I would take your I term relax and lower this cutoff to 10. Make sure it's on, of course, and lower this to 10. I'm going to go with an assumption that it's a 5-inch. If it's a bigger quad or a whoop, that you might even actually go down to 5 for that. If you can see bounce back, 98% of the time it's I term, and the fix is I term relax. If you can only see the overshoot in logging and you can't see it in the feed, or it's like super fast in your FPV feed, like it's like one of those things like when you see a shooting star, you're like, did I just see a shooting star? Or I don't know. It was quick. You're like, it's so quick that you're not really sure if you saw it or not. Then that could be P-term overshoot. But if that is if that's 15 or whatnot, and that's not the issue, then you would need to raise this. If it is P-term induced bounce back, which I'm kind of doubting it is, but maybe it is. Maybe it'll get back to me here. I'm not looking at the chat window. You would increase this P and D gain slider, or PD, I'm sorry, PD balance slider. You would move this up. That will give you some more D term to suppress any P term overshooting. First thing, control the I term. That's what this is. The I term relax is really good at. Next thing after that is if it's still getting some bounce back or you're seeing overshooting and logging, then you'd move this one up, this P&D in Betaflight 4.2. If it's Betaflight 4.1, it's the other way around. But I can't imagine everybody's using Betaflight 4.1 at this point. Okay. See a couple more here. Give you a minute. So if just to finish off that question, if you want a sharper feel, that is where you would increase feed forward. The only way to get a quad to follow your sticks, like the quad to be moving right on the sticks, which is set point. That's what set point is. That's your stick commands after your rates are applied, is using feed forward. So because you need that faster push. UAV tech, higher I term relax helps with nose dips on full throttles, right? No. Higher anti-gravity helps with when you're doing nose punches and you get the throttle, I call them throttles, where you're punching the throttle and then you get the nose going up and down. There's two things that help with that. One is, go back over here, I guess. Turn this off. Go back over to here. One is increasing your anti-gravity down here. So for a 5-inch, maybe do, I don't know, just increase it a couple points, 2 or 3 points at a time. If it's a 5-inch, I can't imagine you go much. You got to be careful with this because if this is too high, it will induce nose bobble, not reduce it. So just like everything else, if you go too high, it has bad, it will make things better until a point, and then it starts to make things worse if you keep moving things up. So increase this. I see if you have like a GoPro in the front or something like that. 5 is a pretty good setting. The other thing is to make sure you have plenty of P term. So if it's a 5-inch and you have this PD balance slider on 1, maybe take this down to a 0.9, maybe a 0.8, but I doubt it. You have to have a pretty powerful rig for a 0.8. Most freestyles are 0.9 to 1 to 1.1. That's the range for this PD balance for a 5-inch freestyle. Based on experience. Like a lot of this stuff, I'm just like, where is he coming up with this? Like, guys, I've tuned a lot of quads, like a lot, as a service, as helping people on, just like, same thing with Crunked, and other people. So like, how do you just know that it's experience? Just like anything, it's just like your job. How do I know engineering things and tell clients like, hey, be worried about X, Y, and Z? It's like, just have experience in whatever jobs you guys are all doing. Same thing. You guys have experience. That's what makes you valuable. Same deal. So sorry to just be pulling numbers out of the air, but that's what experience is. It's not just pulling them out of the air. It's coming from past experiences. So 0.9 to 1.1, that's typically your range for a 5-inch. Try to slide it down this way to help with nose throttles as much as you can. Am I going the right direction? Yeah. Try to throw it down that way as to help with throttles as much as you can. And then increase this P&D gain slider as much as you can. So that would go this way. That will, all those things together, anti-gravity, moving this down and moving, to a 0.9 or maybe a 0.8, but I kind of doubt it. And then moving this P&D gain slider up will help. Another thing that will really help a lot is Betaflight 4.3, which is not in a stable release yet. And it's kind of a pain right now because of the configurator. There's a mismatch between 4.3 at right now and the configurator. I mean, it works and everything. It's just like a lot of the RC smoothing commands in the receivers tab don't like the dialog boxes don't make sense because it's like in progress. So I don't know if you want to jump on 4.3, but if you did, that has, with anti-gravity, it boosts I gain in 4.2, but in 4.3 it boosts I gain and P gain, and that helps a lot because P gain is what you need, more P gain to counteract throttles. So anti-gravity was first induced or introduced into Betaflight to help with when you punch the throttle and then you chop the throttle, your quad will like drift, right? But if you boost I gain, that will tendency not to drift anymore. And also with a higher I gain, it reacts faster. So even on throttle punches, it helps because the I gain, since it's boosted, to some extent takes on more properties like the P term, like the P gain. Um, so it helped with that. But even better to help with that is actually just boost the dang P gain. So in 4.3, that was Chris Thompson added that in. So yeah, it helps a lot with throttles. Other than that, just get your CG a little bit better mechanically. That's always, if you can move things, but a lot of times that's not an option. So it's always best to do things mechanically, but I don't say it right away because typically it's not an option. Okay. Oh God. There's my son on there. That is my dad. Dylan Spatz is on watching the live stream. There you go. Upstairs. He must be upstairs in his room. We just had a big birthday party for him and everything. So we actually have another one this afternoon. That's why I had to do a live stream this weekend, because I don't have enough time to make a video and edit and all that kind of jazz. But yeah, so say welcome everybody to Dylan Spatz, my 10-year-old now, checking out the stream. Anyways, high term relax helps with those in there. No, that's anti-gravity. Last question. I'm going to start doing I'm going to jump in the testing. I really want to know what you think about Ross's recommendation of D-term BiQUAD at 100 versus like a 1.5 D-term slider, dynamic plus static, phase-wise. All right, yeah, we'll do this. And then if you guys want to throw your chats in there, then I'm going to jump over, because I kind of put this as we're going to do some module testing, so I want to do that, and I only have till 12:30 sharp, and I got to jump off. Not that it should take that long, but I want to at least deliver on. I don't want to bait and switch. So let's look at phase delay stuff real quick. So one of Chris Rosser's recommendations is to use BiQUAD, a static BiQUAD at 100 hertz versus just the sliders. I was a big proponent of BiQUAD filtering in Betaflight 4.0 because of their properties, and but then they had some negative downsides if you have a lot of noise. So let's just look here. Okay, so the P&D gain slider. So right in this spreadsheet, I have actually, let's go into this one. This is really 4.1 and 4.2. So if you're not aware, if you go to tiny.cc /UAV tech, you can get all this stuff. So it's not like it's secret stash of mine or anything. All right, so we have that there. Yeah, good. Okay, so at 50% throttle, let's see, I have 50% throttle, and I have the D-term slider set at 1.5, like Crunk was saying. You're getting about D-term latency, about 1.6 milliseconds at 0 to 1.5 milliseconds at, I think this is at 100 hertz over here, 90 hertz. And the reason this is yellow, so this is the yellow stuff, is the prop wash zone. Like that's where you'll get into, these are kind of the prop wash numbers, like 25 to 90 hertz. That means that oscillations per second. So prop wash can be oscillating 25 times per second. So that's a lot faster than me doing this. Or up to 90 times a second. That's very rare. It's mostly normally like 45 to 60, 40, 30, I would even say 35 to 60. That's generally where you'll see prop wash. This stuff down here, 1 hertz, 2 hertz, that's just you moving the sticks. And then even less, like 0.00, all that kind of jazz. So that's just you moving the sticks. But you can see the delay of the filters, just the math. It's going to delay the signal by 1.6 milliseconds. And it matters because this is for the computer to do its thing, the flight controller, not you. Like that 1.6 milliseconds is, you're not going to be able to notice that, but it does matter to the flight controller. So you can see if we move this throttle down to 30%, this goes up to 2.1 milliseconds. So 2.1 at 30 milliseconds, 1.6 at 2.1 at 30% throttle, 1.6 at 50% throttle. And this is just the D term. You can see there's filtering over here for the gyro, but we're not dealing with that. We're just talking about the D term. And then 90 at 70% throttle, we're looking at 1.4. And the reason I say that, look at these throttle percentages, because if you look, when you get prop wash, you are between 30 and 70% throttle. Because if you like do a 180 or come out of a power loop or something, if you just don't get on the throttle, you won't get prop wash. It's the act, right, of you're revving those motors up and they're pushing against to make you go a different direction. And that pushing, you're getting reverse flow into them and they're trying to push and it causes this turbulent thing, right? Piece of cake. But that happens, you have to get on the throttle. So 30 to 70%. Again, looking at a bunch of logs, it's always in between that range. So that's why we want to look at the delay. Now let's just change this up and say, okay, he's turning this off. And then he's setting this as static. So I'm going to change this from dynamic to static. And then in here, I'm just going to override this math in here. And he's saying it to 100 hertz. And let's start at 50. So we're about 1.6. But that's a PT1. If I go to a BiQUAD, that goes up to 2.3. So it's a heck of a lot more delay. Now, if we turn off all this other filtering, just back up a second. Can't do that. That stinks. If I turn off all this other filtering here, showing this, yep. Okay, so this is this plot up top here. This is the attenuation strength of the BiQUAD. So let's just look. Let's just use 200 as a target. So BiQUAD at 100 hertz is going to take the magnitude of any noise vibration, and it's going to reduce it by more than half. So this is, zoom in here a little bit. So this is 1. So that means it's not reducing the amplitude at all, right? Because if you take a number for how big of an amplitude it is and you multiply it by 1, it's the same amplitude. If you take an amplitude of a signal moving up and down and you multiply it by 0.5, whoop, that now reduces that signal vibration by half because 0.5, right? So that's what this means. So at 200 hertz, you can see 50%. We're going to be more than that, like 45%. It's going to reduce the amplitude of the noise, the vibration from motors and stuff by 45%. So that's that. Now let's look at the delay. Delay is a lot more, right? You're getting 1.6. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me back up. Jeez, I had that wrong. Let's go back over here. My bad. It's reducing it by 0.1, so 90%. I'm sorry, I had the wrong thing. So that's at the motor noise peak. Now I'm messing everything up. 200 hertz again. It's reducing it by 80%. So it's only letting, I don't know, let's say 75% because it's 25. It's right around here. For 200 hertz, it's reducing it by 25%, or only letting 25% of the amplitude of the wave sine through, or the motor's noise through. So that's a BiQUAD. For that, we're getting all kinds of delay though, right? 1 point or 2.3. And that is regardless of, as you can see, as I move the throttle up and down, it doesn't matter now because it's not a dynamic. This is static, just at 100 hertz. So it doesn't, the throttle thing doesn't matter anymore. So there's more delay. Now let's go back to the PT1 setup. This is why I wanted to. Let me just reopen this sheet because I wiped out that field. I don't want to redo the math. All right, so now we're back to the PT1 setup. Let me just set this off for all these other filters. Come on. There you go. There's that. There's that. Okay. Now we're at 50%, 1.5. We are at 1.6. And we are reducing at 200 hertz a little bit. It's like 50%. So it is reducing at 200 hertz twice the amount of signal. So the signal as a single BiQUAD at 100 hertz is attenuating twice as hard for 200 hertz. And you could saw it was on a curve before. So at 200, we just picked 200 hertz because anything above 200 hertz is all noise. But the delay is, well, it's not twice as much delay, but there's more delay. So you're getting more attenuation, but more phase delay as well. So that's the difference between the two. And what he's doing there is he's dropping off the, some of the filtering down here. I guess if you wanted that same thing, the other thing you could do is just, let's see what we would need here. Yeah. So if you set your D-term sliders to 0.8, that's about the same at 50% throttle. That is about the same filter attenuation. And let's see if it's more delay though. It's more delay. So that's 3. What was it before? 2.6, 2.3, 2.3 or 2.6 it was before. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's all give and a take. At the end of the day, wherever you have more filtering, you get more delay. BiQUAD is going to, or a PT1, the big difference between a PT1 and a BiQUAD is, like you could say, you can move this up. This is 0.25. Let me look here. So this is now 0.25 here at 200 hertz exactly. That's 0.9. Let's see what our delay is now. Yeah, 2.7. I think we were at 2.6 before. Dang it, I can't believe I forgot to, let me just do this. 2.3. So yeah, it's still a little bit more. Delay 2.3, 2.6. So if I move this up to a 1.0. 1.0, 2.4. All right. So so BiQUAD at 100 hertz had 2.3 milliseconds delay and was attenuating 75% of the noise. 2 PT1 filters in series with a slider of 1.0. You can see sliders 1.0 here. That's attenuating 70% of the noise instead of 75%. and it's just a little bit more delay point. So it's about equivalent. So I think my takeaway is you can do the amount of filtering and delay. You can see there's like no free lunch, right? If you want more filtering, you get more delay. So is it better to use a PT1 or a BiQUAD? Okay. Two PT1s in series are really close to a BiQUAD for filter characteristics, but you can see that the BiQUAD filter has a steeper curve. Like it's just a single BiQUAD had a steeper roll-off curve. Like if I can show it here, for example. See now this curve here, this is a PT1, this yellow one, and look how the BiQUAD one has a steeper roll-off. See how it's just a steeper line? So you're going to get, with a BiQUAD filter, you're going to get more filtering up high, but it has a little bit, it's a little bit more efficient. The thing with a BiQUAD filter as well is it doesn't filter down low as much. So keep in mind that this is your prop wash area down in here. So with PT1 filters, you are reducing the signal of the actual prop wash itself. So if the quad doesn't see the full amplitude of the prop wash, well, it's not going to be able to react to the full amplitude of the prop wash. So yeah, what ends up happening though is your tune changes a little bit because with a BiQUAD setup, you should need less D-term because it's letting more of the full signal through. With a PT1, you can probably get higher D-term. So that is my take on it. I think BiQUAD is probably a good way to go for D-term, but it is going to be more sensitive to stuff, and it might not work on all builds. We had BiQUAD filtering as the default. All the filters were BiQUAD in Betaflight 4.0, and a lot of people had resonance issues, and it didn't go really well. So we'll see what how Chris's recommendations. I think is if you have a good mechanical and all those things he talks about, I think it is a good recommendation. It's just how well will it go with the masses? We'll find out soon enough. Okay, that was a long answer to that. So a 1.5 versus a 1. Yeah, okay. So I went through all that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's to say it's. I think you should try it. I think the proof is in the pudding. Like if you're interested, give it a shot. Whether it's better or not, just keep in mind you might have to adjust your D term. Like if it's like, ooh, it's very oscillations, and it's like, well, it's because your D, like pull your D gains down a little bit because it's letting more of the signal through below 100 hertz. So that's more signal the D term is going to react to. I think Chris's argument, so Brandon says, I think Chris's argument for the static, though, was that post RPM filtering signal tends to have a vertical weighted noise by D term. Vertically weighted. I don't know what that means. Vertically weighted noise. I still don't know if I agree fully, but it isn't easy to start with. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not greasing up my frames, guys. You can grease up your frames. That's like that's like the, earlier in the stream I talked about, we're going to do this testing now. Early in the stream, I talked about not liking brushed motors because it's like just that like next level. I'm like, I'm not going there. But same thing for like greasing the frame, like just like soft mounting motors. Like I don't, yeah, it's like, oh, it's better. It's been proven better. Yeah, it's fine. I'm not taking that effort to soft. I did soft mount back in the day, and I'm not doing it anymore. I haven't been doing it for a couple years, but it's just too much effort. I don't know, too much, another level to deal with. So even though it does make a difference, it does show to be helpful a little bit. All right, let me see what this last one is here. That's not what I want. That's not what I want either. I want this one. Is it possible to make a program to read the black box and automatically change or make recommendations to pins and stuff, I'd be happy to pay for such a software. Verity FPV asks that last question. We were just talking about this in the Betaflight Slack and the Skunkworks group. If anybody does it, I think it's going to be Brian White because he's pretty darn close. We just had he was doing some tests because they were really skeptical. If you think we all just agree in the Betaflight Slack about everything or the Skunkworks group, that you're wrong. You don't. I get a lot of flack. This whole like find your PD balance, move the gains up together. There was a lot of skepticism, and they had to like prove it to themselves or whatever. So it got vetted, and we did a bunch of testing. And with Brian White did a bunch of testing that showed that clearly, as once you have your PD balance squared away, as you move the gains up together, that balance doesn't go off. I actually have all the stuff on it. I should show it. I should do a whole video on it. But anyways, as we were going through that, I think some people were like, "Oh, he's not," or in like the whole concept that P term quells the oscillations of the I term. Like people weren't buying it, and then they did more testing, and I'm like, "See," and then so I think there were some revelations there, and Brian's like, "Wait, if we do X, if we take this to do the next two things, then we could just have it spit out the gains," and he has the wherewithal to actually make it happen. So stay tuned. He might be something that PID Toolbox brings your way, but wouldn't it be awesome? It's a little bit more complicated because the feedback loop is not there. So I think it could make some recommendations, ballparks, but they're not going to be like perfect because as you change the gains, your motors are the thing that reacts back. And obviously PID Toolbox isn't going to have that data. Okay, so let's do this testing here. So what I'm going to do here, and if you have any questions, just throw them in there. I'll come back to the chat, but I'm not going to be looking at as much. So what we have here is I have a happy model receiver. Let me pull this off here. So what we have is, and I've not done this testing yet, so we'll see how it goes. So this is an EP happy model 2.4 gigahertz express LRS receiver. I have this wired up to my end-to-end latency test rig. This is the EPS developers board. And so what we have here is the receiver's just wired up. So you have the three wires, the power, ground, and then the signal wire. This thing right here, this is going to hook to this wire here that just uses this jack for convenience. And that is going to go into my radio if you haven't watched any of this stuff before. So this device is going to send a signal using the radio. It's actually going to move the throttle up and down really fast. And it will know when it sent it, and it will know when the receiver received it, right? Because it's sending it. And then the receiver receives it, and it pumps back into the same board. So that's the key. You need one device, one timer to send the signal and then read when the signal is detected. So obviously the signal comes from this board, goes through the red wire, goes into the transmitter, into the gimbal stick. So it's measuring gimbal latency too. Goes into the motherboard, to the module, across the air, into the antenna, into the receiver, and then the receiver sends it to the flight controller, which in this case is this board. So you can measure, hey, from when I send the signal to when I receive the signal, how long did it take? And then it can also measure the packet length. Big thanks to the Express LRS guys, Alessandro. They developed all the firmware and stuff for this and the whole technique. He showed me how to do it, and I've been doing a lot of testing. He's been doing a lot of testing too, but he wants a kind of a non-biased, because he's the developer of Express LRS, so he wants another, kind of somebody else to come in and test alongside. make sure we're getting the same results. So I had received, I've done a lot of testing on the Express ELRS, and let's go back to here. So I did a video on doing a bunch of module testing, and you guys have probably seen this chart before. Hopefully, if you watch that video, maybe, maybe not. And this chart has a bunch of stuff. This is the end-to-end latency, what I just talked about. Also, part of that is jitter, like how much jitter is in the signal, how consistent the packets are, because there's the packets are, think of it like a bunch of stair steps, right? As you send a packet of data. So are the stair steps, just like your stairs, is the tread length 2 milliseconds long, or is the tread length 20 milliseconds long? Obviously, the length of the tread in a stair-stepped kind of thing, as you're sending different signals, that length of that tread matters for how quickly you can update. Because if you're sending 20 millisecond packets, well, you're going to have 20 milliseconds before the next packet, then another 20 milliseconds. So that has a part in the end-to-end latency. Then there's another factor of, once you make the packet update, how long does it take to travel through the air? So there's two things together. So this is 2000 microseconds or 2.1 milliseconds. And you can see that the packets are jumping up and down, like they're not always 2.1 milliseconds, or it's actually in between. These are 2 milliseconds for Express ELRS. But you can see the packets aren't always exactly 2 millisecond length. The treads vary. So it's like making uneven steps in your house, which can make people trip. Think of it that way. If you have uneven treads on a stairs, you can easily trip people because they're anticipating a certain tread length. Well, think of the flight controller as the same dang thing. And if you have uneven treads and steps, it messes up, because Betaflight trains onto, like, okay, this signal is going to be 2 milliseconds, so we'd apply this amount of smoothing to it to get, instead of having stair steps, to have a nice, even, and smooth signal that we can boost with feed forward and all the size stuff, other kinds of things. But if the treads are all different length, well, our filtering could be off a little bit. So it's important to have consistent treads so you don't get tripped up. Same concept. But even Express, and this is Ghost up here, the treads are not the same length. And if you really paying attention, the I don't know if I have it anymore. What do I do here? No. It's this one. Yeah. So Ghost made an update in the video I did for Ghost, in the public video. This was the result. Actually, back. That's the thumbnail. Yeah, this was, I think I updated this in between. But you can see, like Ghost 250. Look at how this is just, it's all over the place for packet length. It's, 4.2 milliseconds, even higher, down to 3.9. That's a lot of jitter in the signal. And that's the uneven stair steps are not great. But that's what it produces. So it is what it is. Ghost made an update since then. I did a Patreon video on this, and man, they improved it. Look at that. Now, this is still beta. That's why I did a Patreon video. But their beta software, that's still beta. Look at how that jitter, I mean, just look at the difference between the gray line. That's what the jitter used to be. That's what it is now. And across the board, even here. So you can see on the stuff I had before, Ghost didn't even have the 500, the race 500. Like, it's still in beta. So I didn't even have that in the public video stuff. You can see I didn't have it down here. So did that test. They're doing a much better job on the jitter and with the race 500. So that really turned because honestly, before with Ghost, I was like, I'm not that impressed, guys. Fix your jitter and then we can talk, from my standpoint. To me, jitter is just sloppy coding. Like, you're not You're not focusing on the details. I know you have all these other feature sets, which are amazing, but if it's going to be all sloppily put together, I'm not interested. I don't love it. So I did some testing, was really impressed with this, got out the Patreons because it was beta, and and it's a good thing I did it this way. I also retested Express LRS, and Alessandro was not happy with this result. As you can see, Ghost in their latest beta had less jitter than Express LRS, and he's like, that's not cool. Hold my beer. What's going on? And his tests were not lining up. So he was getting much less jitter in his Express LRS testing. The module I was doing my Express LRS testing was a DIY do-it-yourself module. I think Wes created it, like built it, the module, and sent it to me. So I tested it, retested it, talked with them, getting the same result over and over and over again. Like it just is what it is. Am I doing anything wrong? It's like, no, it looks like you're doing everything right. It's like, okay, well, that's your result. So since then, they said, well, we're going to have Happy Model send you one. Let's do an update with Happy Model to see if that Express LRS jitter goes down, because maybe there's something with the gear, maybe whatever. Let's see what it does. And that's what we're going to run today. I've not done this. I just got this working. I made sure it worked real quick to do the test itself, but I did not put it into the Excel spreadsheet. Now, a little bit more of an update is that Ghost did another firmware update that I grabbed and did another test on, and their jitter went back up. You can see the jitter here. I only did race 500 so far, but I got the latest Ghost beta on here, and the freaking jitter went back up. And I was like, dang it, what? So I let Tony know. I still owe Tony race 250, and they have there's another mode on here called something. I don't even know. I should be talking about it. But there's another mode on here. I haven't signed any DNAs or anything. But there's another mode on here that I think is supposed to be like ultra low jitter or something. I think that's because I think it's like Sure Shot 250 or something like that. It's something in the name. So I'm guessing with that. Anyways, we'll get to that if we have a second. I want to do this Express testing. So come along with the ride with me. So to do that, we have I have a whole video on the setup of how you can download this software or firmware that you have to use VS Code and Platform IO. I have a whole video on that. If you're interested in that, go check out the channel and look for Express LRS, and I'm sure it comes up with that. It's probably April time for you or something like that. So anyways, I have that. I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but first thing I need to do is I'm going to plug my thing in here so that the signal can go to here. Turn this on. And you can see it gives me throttle warning because this is plugged in, because it moves the throttle up. So I had to unplug it to just get that. You have to have throttle at 0 first. So then from here, I'll plug in my module here. It's going to power. You can see the light here, I think. That's powered up and connected. Have it all bound and all that jazz. Now what we're going to do is Express LRS for the best possible magic. You have to turn off telemetry. So I have that turned off. I have it set to 500 hertz refresh rate, 25 milliwatt, which doesn't really matter. The other thing is, if you're looking at Express LRS, pull this up real quick. If you select one of these, I think it doesn't matter. See this no sync on ARM? So if you look back here, see these spikes, this spike here, where the packet length goes up? That's a sync packet. So if you want the best possible jitter, no telemetry, you've got to make some sacrifices. No telemetry, and then you're going to use this no sync on arm. The downside is if you fail safe and it loses connection, which you shouldn't in a race, this would be mostly for racing, right? You'd only use this for racing. That it will not reestablish connection unless you disarm. When you disarm, then it will, if it can, reestablish connection. So the no sync on arm means without sync, you're not going to be able to, like, if it loses connection, it's done until you disarm. So it's probably not great. There's no such thing as micro fail safes in that scenario, right? Because it's not going to reconnect unless you disarm. So if you turn this off, though, you will get these spikes every 2,000 milliseconds or 2 seconds. So I'm going to have that off. So to do that, I'm going to arm it on here. That just moves aux1 up. That turns the sync thing off because this is the settings I have. I have this on. These are the settings I have for this test. So all this stuff on. This doesn't matter though because, well, at least this doesn't, because I have telemetry turned off altogether in my Lewis script that's on there. Okay, so with that, we're going to go over here. We're going to go ahead and hit upload and monitor. And this will upload the code. You can see I have it set for Crossfire here to read that. So it's uploading to the ESP. And then once it's uploaded to the ESP module, then I can hit, yeah, reconnect. And I should be able to hit, yeah, there it goes. So there's two buttons on the module. You have to hit the flash. So I hit the reset button that had it connect, and then I hit the flash button. So these are what we're seeing here is each packet. So you can see every, I don't know how long it goes in between. I'd have to look in the code. Well, is it right here? Yeah, I would guess this is microseconds. So maybe every half of a second. No, that's 500 tests. So this is the number of tests we're going to run, 500. I don't think the timing is right here. I don't want to get into it. But you can see how often it's sent. It's like waiting. It's waiting 0.25 seconds, 0.5 seconds before it sends another packet. This is the packet count. This is the end-to-end latency. This is the frame length. So you can see we're getting 2 millisecond frames. Now that one went down. This is the jitter part. This is, again, this end-to-end will go up and down. We'll see here in a second. So while that is running, let me bounce back over to here and see what we got for super chats, or chats, I mean. Hey, Prince FPV, how are you doing? Any questions here? Anti-blog asks, just a small question. How do you find time for your job and life when you are deep in the FPV hobby? Early mornings, late nights. Yeah, you just, I don't know, make time, I guess, the best you can. So in the summer, it's harder in the summer than in the winter, because we're just very busy in the summer, like with the weekends and enjoying the outside and swimming and going on hikes and all kinds of stuff. So I try to keep a balance, the best I can. My wife's very supportive too, so that's good. That's what I got to be honest. The support I get through Patreon supporters, that helps support my time because it helps my wife support me working on this stuff. So that's the biggest support part of it. So I appreciate that. Anyways, let me see if there's any other. I guess that's it. Let me bounce back over to here. Should be done. So at this point, we're going to copy this. It's pretty straightforward. Control C to copy it. I go into here, hit new, or I'm sorry, notepad. Take it in Notepad, I'll paste that, save. I'm going to put this into Express ELRS 2.4 gig. I'm going to put 2.G. And what was I calling this before? Yeah, so let's do. So it's going to be Express ELRS 500 telemetry off and sync off as well. Save that. Close this. Didn't need to do that. Let's go over here to open, browse, snag that data, happy model. Let's see how this all comes together. Before I do that, let's go here. So we're now under Express 2.4G. We're at the 500, telemetry off. Go down, delete that. Back over to here, copy. And here we are. So you can see your end-to-ends about the same. Let's go back over to here. Oh, Sandra will be happy to see that. So yeah, Express is back. For a while, I was giving him a hard time. So Wes, if you ever watch this video, what's up with your module, man? Either solder blob or something. So yeah, the jitter, you can see this is your latest and greatest. Hopefully Tony will and Immersion RC will work out this ghost stuff. I'll probably do an update video at some point when they're out of beta because of the same reason. It was looking really good and then it turned really bad. So when you're in beta, it can flux back and forth. So that's why I didn't want to make a public video. But Express, yeah, it's looking good there. Let's go over to, obviously it's 5 milliseconds is the average. So all this charts and stuff update automatically, like it's all linked. And you can see here, let's see how they're stacking up. So the 2.4, yeah, looking pretty good down here. So your end-to-end is 4 to 6 milliseconds. And you can see the distribution there. You have 200 out of 500 samples, there's 233 were 4 to 5 milliseconds, and about half and half, right? 255, 5 to 6 milliseconds to get from the gimbal input to the flight controller, like the whole train. So that's testing the gimbal stuff. That's testing OpenTX, you know, and I have the latest OpenTX on there with all the crossfire shot stuff where it's all synced, where it's all module synced is all in there, of course. So the end-to-end is about the same. Let's look up what it used to be. Let's go to here. So yeah, they were. Okay, so this is the one where Ghost was doing really good and Express was not getting there. And now you can see, so the end-to-end is basically the same. There's 3 packets here that were a little longer. I don't know which 3 those are. I can look back at that for a second. But generally, most of your frames are in the 4 to 6, so that's about the same. Average is this exact same 5, so that's just average of them all. And 5 milliseconds, and then you can see the big increase, betterment and jitter. So since we have 4 more minutes, let's see if there's any other questions. Just yeah, I mean, Lamp FPV asked would I consider a video about whoop tuning. Yeah, I can put something together. I covered it earlier in the stream. If you just joined in after that to check that out, it should be fairly straightforward. The DYI uses a E280 module in it. Maybe that's the difference. I wonder if that's a DYI general issue or a fluke. I don't know. Dash dash whoever dash dash is hyphen hyphen. Yeah, I'm not. I can guarantee the one thing I can guarantee is the testing that I showed in that 2.4. That was like the earlier testing that I was getting with the 2.4 that Alessandro was not happy about. That was not just like one test. Like I tested it like 10 times, 10 different ways, did a bunch of stuff. You know, like you should, because he was, you know, did you mess this up? Did you mess that up? Why I'm not getting that result. I don't understand. I don't understand. And that, you know, now we can kind of see why it had to do. It's either, I mean, it could have been the receiver too, right? There's two parts to that. So I don't know what it was, but I know it wasn't a one-off test. Um, what I am happy about, because honestly, I didn't know how this was going to go. I could have pasted that and came over to here and it could have been bad. But I'm happy that the results are more in line with, because this is exactly what he was showing me. He was showing me the super flat line, and I was not getting that. Interesting enough, if you guys want to see the difference. So now if I turn, I'm going to do engines disarmed here and go back in, and let's rerun this. So all I have to do is, I should just be able to hit, yeah. So I'm going to do it now with engines disarmed. And this, we should see those right here. Yeah, you saw it. Well, I don't know if you saw it, but if you really pay attention quick, there's some frames that are 4 milliseconds. You're gonna get that sync pulse. So let's run that, and then I'll dump that in there so people can see what that looks like. Let's bounce back over. So as that's running, any other questions we can address? I only have a couple minutes here. I'll paste that in, and then I'll probably jet because we have another birthday party to go to this afternoon. Odd question express. So Kearns JWS express odd question express ELRS with internal fan or not. I have to wonder if it did anything. Yeah, no fan. There's no fan in here. You know, you don't get one with Happy Model. This is just the Happy Model kit you get, the 2.4, where you have to like put which I don't understand why I don't know. You have to like put it together. It's not that hard, but then I don't know why they just don't do it. I guess it's not that hard individually, but when you have like thousands of them, it adds up, or however many. I guess thousands. I don't know. But it doesn't come with a fan, so no fan in here. That's, you know, this has nothing to do with like packets lost because of trees and stuff in the way, right? Because it's 25 milliwatt. It's very close to each other. But the other one didn't. Same thing. The other one didn't have a fan, and same distance, same power, 25 milliwatt. Same everything, same radio, same wire, same equipment. The only thing I changed is the module and the receiver. So it's a different receiver and a different module. I guess I could do that, right? I could get the old receiver, plug that in here, and see if it was the receiver or the module. I'll have to do that another time. All right, let me pop back over here real quick. Oh, it's almost done. It's 12:30 right now. So we're going to pop this in. If anybody has any quick questions, you better throw them in there right now. I'll pop back over, tag my name. If I don't see any questions with the name tagged, I'm going to end the stream because I got to get rolling. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, do this. I'm just going to overwrite the data. Copy. Close this. Notepad. Paste it. Save it. So this will be this with sync on. Close that. Open. Browse. Testing. Express 2.4. Model. Sync on. Next. Comma delineated. finished. Go to here. Make the data. Select the data. Copy. And you can see with sync on, now you're going to get those packets. You can see you'll get these doubling packets for the sync pulse. That's the difference between sync on and sync off. You can see the latency is, or the overall jitter is still really nice and tight, but you're going to get these jumps. I don't think that will hurt that much in feed forward, as long as you might need to do averaging. You'd have to see. I have not done tests to see if it really has that much impact on feed forward or not. But you know, every so often it's going to take 4 millisecond stair step instead of a 2, so you're getting that uneven stepping. And obviously, adding in telemetry does the same thing and adds even more of those jumps. So with Express, you kind of have to pick, like, what do you want? Because you can't have it all. What I really liked about Ghost, and we'll end with this, is when we were getting these great results on Ghost, like here. Let's just look at this Ghost Race 250. This is FLRC, right? This was with telemetry and also with, you know, none of that sync nonsense. Like, it was, like, if it would lose connection, it would regain connection. It was sync on, I guess, and telemetry on. And you were still getting this ultra tight, or really tight, you know, not a lot of jitter. So that's why I was like, wow, that's impressive. So they're doing it. So it was better than Express, in my opinion, because you didn't have to make these like choices and sacrifices. You could just have everything turned on and you're still getting really low jitter. But now I don't know what happened. So maybe I'm sharing the data with Tony. Hopefully he can get it back to where it was. But all right, well, that's it. Let me jump back over to here, guys. Oh, sorry, I didn't share that screen. That's bad. You guys are probably like, what the heck? So here's what the frames with the when you have the sync pulses turned on. You can see how it's doubling here. That's how it looks like with sync on versus sync off. And then when I was talking about the FLRC and the Race 250, that was looking up here at how this is with sync on and telemetry on, and they were still having really low amounts of jitter, and you can have spikes and all that kind of stuff. Sorry for not managing my screen sharing there too well. Okay, guys. Last 2 questions. Brian said, I've seen people using the T-Lite module and the Tango 2. How do you connect the 8 pins connectors? I'm gonna have to get back to you, Brian, on that one. Maybe hop into the Discord, try to answer that. I don't really know. I'd have to look it up. Next question is Gary C. How does R9M compare with Express ELRS 500 running on telemetry on and off? R9 compared to Express ELRS at 50 running at comparative telemetry update rates. I don't know if I have that here. So R9 is up here. So this is 900 at 50. So I would say look through, Gary C, look through this data set. I'll look through that video that I did on Express ELRS and long range packet stuff, and see if you're, because I have R9, this is 50, this is with telemetry on, and you're saying, how does that compare to Express at 50, like the 2.4G? I don't know if I have that. If you could look through that and let me know if there's something missing there, I can run that test for you. All right, final question. Pacific Northwest pilots, UAV Tech, have fun at the birthday party. Thank you very much. R9 does not have a delay in telemetry. Oh, and R9 itself, like R9 firmware. If you're talking about the R9 firmware itself, ACCST, I haven't run all those tests with, I have R9 module with Express on it, but I have not run the R9 tests. R9 ACCST is a complete mess. R9 Access looks to be fairly good, but I don't have the Yeah, R9 access looks to be pretty good. I don't know if they're just doubling packets at the same thing so you don't get jitter, but it does send 4 millisecond packets or whatever. It doubles the frame, but it just repeats it so you don't get a jitter up and down. Kind of masks it, which is probably a good approach. But ACC, I see, I've done stuff with R9 ACC ST, and it was all over the place. They had a heartbeat at 200 milliseconds. Maybe it's that was on the latest firmware. So this testing software has SBus to do that testing. It's just not working right now, but I do want to get to doing that. I just need somebody to. Alessandro has not got it working yet, so I need to bug him more, or if somebody else can jump in. It's kind of above my pay grade on how to get that stuff working, coded up right. It has it in it, as you can see here. SBus. Somebody just added iBus, but again, it's not. I don't think it's working right. But I do have an ACC radio and an access radio, so I can test in between the two, which I want to do. Okay, 5 minutes after. Thanks, guys. I do have to get jutting. Hope this was a good live stream, viable live stream. It's I was thinking about doing them more with like a intent and purpose in place, in addition to just Q&A and stuff like that. So if you like that format, let me know in the chat, or if you didn't like that format, let me know in the chat. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.